Reactive training systems.
So I wanted to share a thought with you guys this week. To me, as far as I can tell, coaching is about three things. It's about leadership, relationship, and creativity. And you need all three of these, and they're all three interconnected. And if you don't have any one of them, then you don't have much of a coaching process going on. I think I'll start with the most obvious, creativity. And what I mean is creative problem solving. I think a coach's job is to solve the problem of the athlete. Obviously, the athlete wants to get stronger, but if it was that easy to do, they wouldn't really need you. They wouldn't need your help. They could do it themselves. The reason that they want an expert involved is because it can be difficult, it can be tricky. It's not always clear what to do next. And everybody responds to training as an individual. And there has to be a process that goes into figuring out what the problems of that individual are and why the standard response doesn't really get it done for this one particular person and their particular set of problems. And I think the coach's job is to solve those problems, to figure out, come up with creative solutions to solve those problems. To do that, to get at what those problems even are, much less come up with actionable solutions, you've got to develop a relationship. You have to have a professional relationship, but it's got to be a relationship that is sufficiently close and sufficiently healthy. And this gets a lot more difficult to talk about. I think, speaking for myself, I find it a lot easier to talk about the creative problem-solving side of things, those types of solutions. It's easier to talk about the program and things like that. It's harder to talk about, solving relationship issues with the athlete so that you can develop a more healthy relationship so that you can even get to what those problems are, much less come up with solutions that will actually get to the root of them. Because as much as we would like to come up with a programming solution for everything, it's just that's not realistic. It's not a thing. So someone who I think does a really excellent job of thinking about this process and coming up with ways to talk about it and ways to improve it is Bryce Lewis. I think they do a really excellent job. But that's something that has to be addressed. We've got to think about it. We've got to make efforts in those areas as coaches. And then the third area is leadership. And this was something that I kind of downplayed in my own mind quite a bit until more recently. I thought of it more as, providing guidance and oversight and things like that. But there's a real need for leadership in a coach's role. Some athletes really want that, really need that, need a coach to. It's not about taking charge. It's about providing guidance. It's providing leadership. I mean, it's right there in the word. And some athletes need a lot of that, and then other athletes would prefer a more laid back approach. It varies really widely, from athlete to athlete, and all these things are interconnected, right? Like, you can't provide good leadership to an athlete if you don't know who they are and what their needs are as a person are. So you've got to have the relationship component in place, but you can't have the relationship component if properly in place if they just see you as a buddy and not as a coach. And I think that's one of the problems. Coaches always talk about, in the beginning when they're coaching for free or something like that, coaching their friends, how difficult that is. And they're right. And a lot of that difficulty comes back to the relationship not being in a good spot for them to do the other two branches of coaching, which is leadership and creative problem solving. And you can't solve the problems if you're unable to provide leadership, or if you're unable to figure out what those problems are via the relationship. So all this is kind of twisted up and combined up into a little ball. And, you know, I can't spell it out in a way that's going to be super actionable or super, you know, process oriented in, you know, one short YouTube video here. But I want to kind of enter this leadership, relationship, creativity triad into our lexicon so that we can begin to see what some of these deficiencies are. As I'm talking to more coaches, as I'm trying to help them grapple with the problems that they're having in their own coaching businesses, I see leadership, relationship problems coming into our conversation. And I'm finding that most of my tools up to this point are focused on the creative problem solving aspect of things. It's not to say that, you know, we don't do any of the leadership, relationship stuff. I think in my own coaching practice and the RTS framework, I think we do a good job of those things. It's just that doing them and talking about them are different. And I think if we're going to help other people get better at it, if we're going to get better at it ourselves, then we have to have the language to talk about these things. So there we go. That's my entry into this topic. And I'd like to get into a lot more discussions on this. I think a podcast, having some guests on our podcast where we talk specifically about leadership, relationship, would be really useful. So if you guys have any suggestions on people who are especially good to talk with about these two areas, I'd like to start there. So please feel free to make a comment, leave a suggestion, let me know what you think, and hopefully we can kind of elevate the conversation around the coaching practice as a whole, and we'll all be better for it. Hey, so I really hope you're enjoying these videos. If you like this kind of information and you'd like to get into more depth with it, then I would definitely recommend checking out RTS Classroom. Classroom is an online course that we teach. We launch a new one pretty much every quarter, and it allows us to get into a lot more depth on these topics than we're otherwise able to do, because we can teach you one concept and then build on it in subsequent videos. So if this is something that you want to get more into, you want more information on it, then I would definitely recommend checking out RTS Classroom. I think there's a variety of different courses. I'm sure that you're going to find something that you like, that you want to get more information on. So definitely check that out.
Reactive training systems.